Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Riding of Yorkshire series. Together with the unparished city of Hull, it forms the county of the same name. There's 172 parishes here. Which one are we in today? Welcome back to the East Riding of Yorkshire, everybody. Now it's about 7 o'clock in the evening here and the light is starting to fade a little bit, but there's enough light to get around this place. This is a lovely little village and it goes by the name of Sproatley, and Nikki is with me for this. Let's go and explore. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Sproatley in the East Riding of Yorkshire. This is 7 miles northeast of Hull and 4 miles north of Hedon at the junction of the B1238 and B1240 roads in the Holderness area of the county. The name Sproatley originates from 2 words and it means a clearing in a forest. It's at least 74 feet above sea level, situated in the midst of an area of fertile alluvial soils. Over the years, Sproatley has passed into the hands of many people until 1840, when the principal landowner was Sir Talbot Constable of Burton Constable Hall. One of the later owners here would plant 1,000 trees, which is why in places it feels like you're in a forest. Sproatley is best known for 2 people by the name of Joseph Rank. The first would be the man who founded the Rank organisation. He was the son of the flour miller of the same name, who had his first mill in Sproatley. Chris Chilton, who died only last year and was something of a legendary footballer in the eyes of Hull City fans, was born in Sproatley. It has quite a bit for its size. There's a village shop, 2 public houses, a former chapel and a church. At one time, there was a police station complete with cells, which was used on a regular basis. In 1937, Sproatley was a village with about 100 houses and plenty of grass fields and open spaces. There are now about 550 dwellings and it has a population in the region of 1,400. Our journey around Sproatley begins on the B1238 next to this flagpole with what we initially thought was a gravestone. It is in fact though a list of those from the village who served in World War II, all of whom returned home. Keep that in mind because towards the end of the route there's the War Memorial. Right across the road, Sproatley has a shop which doubles as the post office. Research tells me there was a butcher's here at some point too. Newcomers to the channel will not be familiar with what I do when I see one of these. Every time I see a parish notice board, I leave one of my cards. Sproatley's can be found on this screen too. At this point, Nikki was quite taken with the phone box, having never seen a white one before. You see, up here in and around Hull, white phone boxes are commonplace. The phone still works too. There are 2 pubs in Sproatley. Overlooking the green here is the Constable Arms, which used to be 2 houses. It's a 250-year-old building. Next, we're off up into a residential area after we've seen an old chapel. The Wesleyan Methodists built a chapel in Park Road in 1804. It was largely rebuilt in 1904, and as Sproatley Methodist Church it was still in use in 2011. Nowadays this has been converted into a house. So Nikki's got a good description of some of the houses you can find here. What do we call them, Nikki?
Chocolate box houses.
And why are they called chocolate box houses?
Because they wouldn't look out of place as a picture on the front of a box of chocolates, or a jigsaw puzzle or something like that.
That's not a bad way to think of them, is it? After a short meander through a housing estate, we're at the playing fields. This is a vast open space to the village's north, which includes a playground for the local children and plenty of football pitches. Sproatley juniors play here in the Hull and District Youth Football League, with teams from the under-7s through to the under-18s, as well as an academy for 4 to 6-year-olds. They also have an open-age team playing in the Humber Premier League. There are some tennis courts to the left before we exit, used by Sproatley Tennis Club. From here it was a right turn back onto the road, where we would come across something of historical importance. These pillars were the first clues we came across as to Sproatley being an estate village. Constable's descendants owned most of the land and employed most of Sproatley's occupants until the 20th century. A lot of the village has now been sold to property developers, but the estate retains possession of much of the surrounding land. Check this out, by the way, only in the countryside will you see something like this. This is a hedgehog hospital. There's a small thicket of trees now on either side of the road as we head back into civilization. There are some rudimentary access paths that have been trodden out through these by the locals. So we've never been here before. I know I haven't. I imagine you haven't either. No. We reckon this is a very affluent village. There are a lot of houses out here that have more than one car per household. So,
well, that doesn't necessarily make it affluent. It just makes it, you know, car wars on every street kind of thing.
Yeah, thankfully we don't have that problem at home, do we? One car is enough for us, isn't it?
Yeah.
This footpath takes us back to the B1238. A lot of these housing estates, most of which were built in the 1970s, are connected by these, which makes walking around the place a lot easier. Along here there was a garden which we thought was absolutely brilliant. Check out this sign, it has the distances in miles to various things, including the moon. That's the sign that's pointing towards the sky. The road runs out into the countryside to the east beyond this point. Here we have the other village pub, the Blue Bell. Parts of the building are 200 years old, and the pub has a restaurant and 2 separate bars. Just before we go towards another residential area, we have a bus stop. Sproatley has no railway station, so the only way of getting to and from here on public transport is to use the 220, 277 or the 242 services. Running down the side of the Blue Bell there's a small community orchard. I'm pretty much clueless when it comes to trees, but Nikki told me these are cherry trees. Sproatley is certainly not short of a green space or two. At the end of Chestnut Grove there's another area that's been set aside for that purpose. At this point the route takes a left turn towards the church and the school. So we've come down to the what is the south of the village here, which is where you'll find the church, and there's a school there, an endowed school indeed, which we'll get a look at in a moment. That house you can see just underneath this big tree, that's the old classrooms. That suggests to me that at some point that would have been part of the school. It's obviously now a private residence. Anyway, let's go and have a look at the church, and seeing as
because I'm the tapper-file of the bunch.
Yes, yeah, Nikki always likes to have a look around a graveyard, so yeah, let's go and see what we can find in this one. The church in Sproatley is dedicated to St Swithin, a saint whose name appears to have 2 spellings, one with a U according to the Lickgate and one with an I according to pretty much all other sources. I went with the Lickgate spelling. Right next to that there's a bowl which has been placed here for the hedgehogs. If you see the bowl is empty, you're encouraged to fill it back up from the nearby tap. The church is set in something of a wooded glade and contains a small chamber organ built by Father Smith in the late 17th century. It's unique in that the keys are black, the only ones still in use in the country. We were quite interested in this gravestone. The urn with the veil over the top of it is a common sight in churchyards. The urn represents cremated remains and the fabric symbolises the veil between the living and the dead. There have been 3 churches situated on this same site. The first, built in 1140, was a thatched roof property. It gradually fell into such a serious state of disrepair, it was demolished in 1819 and rebuilt again in 1886. By far the most interesting thing about this churchyard would be this rock, believed to be a meteorite, because there are no other rocks like it within miles of Sproatley. Whilst that was very unusual, finding a cross shaft is something I'm used to. St Swithin's has a cross base and a fragment believed to be 15th century in origin. It has a cubical base, which is unusual, and it's Grade 2 listed. Next, we pass Sproatley's Church of England Academy. It's an endowed school and is a member of the Ebor Academy Trust, which is based in York. The old classrooms, which we passed before going into the church, is now a family home. It was Sproatley's school in Victorian times, built during the 1800s. It's now worth well over £500,000 after it was lovingly restored, retaining its outside character. Okay, we've got one major landmark left to see, although it might be 2, depending on what this building is. I think this is the village hall. It looks like it. At the end of the road and opposite that building is a bench in commemoration of Joan Riley, which has been here since 2013. A man by the name of Trevor Ingleson is responsible for its creation. That building was indeed the village hall, which was built in 1912. Sproatley Parish Council described this as being available for hire for group presentations, parties and exercise classes, and it's in use every day. The Sproatley Village Memorial is our last major landmark. It takes the form of a small ornamental wheel-style cross on a flat-top column. For World War I, there are a total of 61 names. There are of course none for World War II. The memorial cost £130 to erect and the sculptor was Mr Albert Leake. It was unveiled on the 5th of June 1920 and it can be found on the small green where the B1238 and B1240 meet. And it's here outside Cockpit Row, that's the name of those houses behind us, that we are fully around the village of Sproatley. You guys need today's picture bit, and here that comes right now. That's taken us about an hour to walk around Sproatley. What do you think to it, Nikki?
It's a very, very pretty village, although I am now a bit warm, even though it's overcast, a little bit overcast. It has been really warm this week and we're still sort of getting the tail end of that. But it's been nice, it's been a lovely walk. Let's have a look.
How many steps?
I'm just going to have a look. Oh.
This isn't going to be a regular feature, just so you know, but sometimes Nikki records her steps. How many?
Just over 5,000.
Hey, that's not bad. If you want a walk around Sproatley, you'll get 5,000 steps to put on your Fitbit. How's that?
Half of your daily.
Half of your daily 10,000 goal. Is that still the goal these days on Fitbit?
Yeah.
People shouldn't live by how many steps they do on Fitbit, you know, they really shouldn't.
A bit like people shouldn't live by how many villages they visit.
I'm not answering that. This has been the parish of Sproatley, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.